here together. Okay. Should we start? Good evening, everyone. We're so glad you're here. Before we get started, there was a tragedy on Roanoke Island yesterday, of which I know little, but we want everyone to keep those involved in your thoughts. Just a little something. We have scripts. You'll figure that out. But I just want to say how proud I am as a league member that Manteo and Roanoke Island and the mainland have 11 members of the league now. This was not true when I joined in 2012. And we have one more coming on her way. So we're really glad about that. Welcome to the 2023 Municipal Candidate Forum for the Town of Manteo, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dare County. I'm Marion Midget, coordinator for this forum. I'd like to thank you all, as well as the candidates, for participating in this event this evening. I want to let you know that we're videotaping this event. Mr. Carl Woody from the town of Manteo is doing that. And the tape will be available on our website as well as on Current TV. The League of Women Voters is celebrating its 103rd anniversary, and we are proud to continue the tradition of bringing candidates and voters together in this way to empower voters. I'm going to introduce the moderator for the event. She will be handling everything that's important. Her name is Marcy Reese.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mary. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you to all of the candidates for your participation this evening, and thank you to the audience for coming. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Dare County, and I live in Southern Shores. The League is a nonprofit, nonpartisan political organization. It encourages informed and active participation in all levels of government. It works to increase understanding of public policy issues and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League maintains a strict nonpartisan policy. It neither endorses nor opposes any political party or candidate. The League participates in the Positive Campaign Project and has requested that each candidate tonight take the Code of Campaign Ethics pledge. We prohibit campaigning or campaign literature in the forum room. Please turn off all your cell phones or electronic devices. Texting is prohibited. So let me introduce some of the people who have been helping out this evening. First are our greeters, who will also retrieve question cards from all of you. And we really would like to encourage you to submit questions. We have these yellow cards, you can write them on. So the greeters are Gwen Taylor, Robin Hindeman, Beulah Ashby, and Pat Smurdell. The question reviewers to my right here are Nancy Barandelli and Laura Allendorf, and our timekeeper, our all-important timekeeper, is Lorelei DiBernardo over there. We encourage a lively and respectful discussion. If you think of a question during the forum, please raise your hand, and one of our staff will hand you a question card. So let me tell you about the town of Manteo candidates. The position of mayor is up for election, and there are 2 candidates. There are 3 commissioner positions up for election on November 7th, and there are 6 commissioner candidates on your ballot. The candidates for mayor are Mr. Bobby Owens and Ms. Sherry Butcher Wickstrom. The candidates for commissioner are Mr. Jason Borland, Mr. Todd Clissold. Mr. Clissold is an incumbent. Have I got your name right? Okay, thank you. Ms. Hannah McGowan Forslund, Ms. Michelle Lewis, Ms. Betty Govan Selby. Ms. Govan Selby is an incumbent, and Mr. Darrell Collins, Mr. Clissold is also an incumbent. And Mr. Darrell Collins, who is also an incumbent, has agreed to participate tonight, but unforeseen events have made that impossible, and he's unfortunately not able to be here. So, let me start off by talking about the format for the forum. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement. The timekeeper will signal when the candidate has 30 seconds remaining. The timekeeper will stand if the candidate continues past the allotted time. Next, candidates will respond to questions from the audience. Questions were either submitted prior to the forum by voters, or they may be submitted during the forum. They are signed with their town of residence or business location. League reviewers have reviewed and will review questions for clarity and to avoid duplication. We believe this procedure affords the greatest variety of subjects to be covered in the allotted time. So if the question isn't read exactly as you wrote it, it's probably because there were several questions on the same topic. Also, I will call on people to answer these questions in a random order, so that no one is first all the time or last all the time. I will read the question as written, and I will identify the submitter. The League advocates positive campaign practices, and we reserve the right to omit any question that is viewed as a personal attack. Questions may be addressed to a specific candidate or to all candidates. And in this case, for example, to the mayoral candidates and then the commission candidates if you feel that you want to do it that way. Questions directed to a specific candidate, however, may be answered by any candidate, so I would give all of you the opportunity after that person. 2 minutes are allotted for responses. The timer will signal the candidate when 30 seconds remains and stand if the candidate goes over time allotted. Opportunities will not be extended to those who initially pass on the question. And finally, each candidate is entitled to a 2-minute closing statement. And as I mentioned, I think to some of you, the order will be reversed from the opening statements. But I will call on you to begin. Before we started, for the audience to know, candidates drew numbers to establish the order for the opening statements, and I will reverse that order for the closing statements. So, if you're all ready, we'll begin with the opening statements from the candidates. And Mr. Borland, you drew number 1.
Hear me? All right, I did joke that I always have to go first before I pull that one out of the envelope there. So the hardest thing about these things with everything going on is to keep this under 3 minutes. And I'm a little rusty, so bear with me. And if I don't get a chance to elaborate on things, I'll try to keep the League's Voter 411 website updated as well with my opinions there. But I did write some things down to try to keep me on track and on time that I want people to know about me beyond my name's Jason Borland. So I moved here. I own a business here, and I'm raising a family here, and that's my perspective. And I think that's important because everyone up here has their own perspective, and I think what needs to happen at the end of this, what should happen, is that we have a snapshot of the community that magnifies what our community is. Like a lot of people, I love Manteo. I hear from guests at the end all the time, you know how special this place is. and I do, believe me, I do. I chose to leave my roots in Virginia twice and come here, so I understand what this place is, and I'm certainly committed to making sure that Manteo remains the greatest place, the only place I would want to be to live, to raise a family, to let my kids grow up, to have opportunities for them to have a place to move back to where they can, find work if they should want, where I can grow old, or where they, exactly, where I can grow old, where they can grow old, a place where I can do what I do now, which is let my kids roam free on the streets without any kind of a worry. Pointing out a couple of things that I've done previously as commissioner, without, again, being able to go into super much detail here. I played what I think were important parts in the design of COA when they were doing that, and they invited Manteo to the table. The Manteo Business Association was something that I tried to be a big part of pushing and finally getting done here. I think one thing that the Town Common Project was something that Eddie and I were the leads from the town on. And I think the Davis project, the Davis land next to Poor Richards, is a good example of what I do and why I'm running, and what I hope to do moving forward. And that was a case where during COVID, prices doubled, and we're sitting there voting on a project that may not happen anymore. And you've got yay and nay, and when the prices double and triple construction costs, we were sitting there saying we've got to shoot this thing down. And I think I said probably something stupid along the lines of, do we have to use gold bricks here? And I'm going to try to hurry up, but I kept the conversation going in that, and we got that done. And so anyway, I remain committed, and that's all my time, but I'm Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Borland. Next, Ms. Sherry Butcher-Wickstrom.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Sherry Butcher-Wickstrom, and I am enthusiastically running for mayor. Manteo is a remarkable place, a charming historic town like no other. And this is an exciting time with many opportunities before us. Like many people who live here, I started coming to Manteo many years ago and fell in love with its character, friendly people, natural beauty, and the small town feel that is so unique to this place. And I was determined to move here after I retired from my position of academic dean in the Minnesota State Colleges and University System. My husband, Mark, and I moved into our home at the end of October 2018, and in December of that year, I began attending the town's Board of Commissioners meetings. So I love local government. I am very involved in it. It's the level of government that is the closest to the people, and it is where local laws impact our everyday lives. And it's where you can talk with your elected officials at church, at the grocery store, walking your dog, or on the soccer field. Before we moved here, I served for 20 years as a city council member in my former town. I wanted to use the experience that I had there, and I wanted to bring it here if needed. And so I rolled up my sleeves and I got involved. In January 2020, I was appointed chair of the Planning and Zoning Board and the chair of the Plan Update Group, which is the 20-year planning group, and I became the chair of the Preservation and Architectural Review Committee, as well as serving as member of the Main Street Program Committee. Then in 2021, I ran for Manteo Town Commissioner and gratefully was elected by you to serve. Over the past few years, we've accomplished a lot. We developed a comprehensive plan that guides our town. We became a Main Street town where historic preservation and economic development meet and thrive, preserve and prosper. And we made decisions that were the right thing for our residents and denying developments that would negatively impact our town. I believe the town has made great progress in the past few years, and as your mayor, I have a plan for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wickstrom. Could I ask the audience to, we're going to hear some really good things from all of these candidates. So how about we hold our applause to the end? Next, Ms. Michelle Lewis.
Thank you. I'm Michelle Lewis, and we're so glad you're here. And I want to thank you all for being here as well, because you have chosen to do anything, literally, when for Tuesday night you chose to come here because you believe in this process, just like those of us who are sitting up here. So your role is no less important than our role. I've spent I'm going on my 3rd year on the Community Police Advisory Board. I spent the last 2 years as chair, and this year I'm vice chair. But before I got here tonight, I was at a vigil for Demetrius Selby, who was killed by a sheriff's deputy last night. Now, I'm former law enforcement. I need to say that. Because sometimes when people hear you talk about police, they automatically assume it's going to be negative. But I would like to take some of my time tonight for a moment of silence for the Selby family, for the officers that were involved, and for our community. So. Thank you. And I realize the clock is ticking. I do this to my students. I teach at Duke University, and I teach doctoral students Christian leadership and master's students spiritual formation. And I put them on a timer when they talk during class. Everybody gets equal time. So they will chuckle to learn that this is what I got to do tonight. But in addition to that, I'm a pastor. I do run the Peace Garden Project. Some of you may have heard about it. And in the Peace Garden Project, what we've done in the last 3 years here in Manteo, so we grow food, we teach people how to grow food, we distribute food. Some of it we actually grow, but our gardens are kind of teaching gardens, so sometimes we grow more, sometimes we grow less, but we do have partners. And in the last 3 years, we've distributed more than 250,000 pounds of fresh produce into our community. And what that says to me is that there's a need here, that there are some folks who are really struggling here, and there's some people who are doing really well too. And so my work throughout my life has been about building bridges, right? Like, how can we reach across the aisle to work together, recognizing we're not going to agree on everything all the time, and that's okay, right? But finding ways to work together to get the work done for the good of all of us. And so that's been really important to me. It continues to be important to me. In addition to serving on the Community Police Advisory Board, I also serve on the Main Street Committee. I've been on the board of the Children Youth Partnership for Dare County. I also spent some time working at the United Nations, where I worked on climate science and climate finance and climate policy, so the environment is really important to me. But once again, I just want to thank you all for being here, because this is so important. I say, we need to vote, and we need to vote like our lives depend on it, because they do.
Thank you, Ms. McGowan-Forslund. Right. Oh, I'm sorry. We're coming up. I'm going to thank Michelle Lewis for your statement, and we're moving on to Ms. McGowan-Forslund. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Hannah McGowan-Forslund. I know a lot of you out there, but for those I don't know, thank you for letting me introduce myself. I had the great privilege of being born and raised in Manteo. And I mean privilege, because what other community can you think of off the top of your head that has that it takes a village mentality when it comes to our children and the people who live here in town? When I was growing up, I knew that if I acted up or towed the line, about 15 people would tell my parents about it. And so that's why when I graduated from Wake Forest University, my husband Phil and I decided to move back to town. Better yet, we got to buy the property right next door to where I was born and raised. So I live next door to my parents, which is a blessing. And now I get to raise my daughters, who are 8 and 4, the same way that I was raised. And that's why I'm running. I want to ensure that the town that lovingly accepted me and helped me shoulder my burdens and celebrate with me when I had something to celebrate, and reached across and held my hand when I needed it also was there for my children. I want to make sure that this town remains the safe, loving, inclusive community that I have always known. We are so lucky, I feel like, in the town of Manteo, to have this paradise that is right outside of our door. And like Jason said, so often I hear from people, please protect this place. My main career right now is in marketing and advertising, other than being a mom. And I get to help a lot of the businesses, both on the Manteo Business Association, but also through working directly with the businesses to help attract people to our community. We are very fortunate to have a tourism economy in Manteo. With that, I think comes a unique responsibility that we have. We need to make sure that we support our businesses, but also support and foster the charm and specialness that makes Manteo, Manteo. Manteo can become like anywhere USA extremely easily. We see that in small towns across the United States. I hope that we can continue to grow and move forward while also keeping Manteo the village that we all know and love. I want to make sure that the new buildings that are built in town look like they've been here forever. I want to make sure that we have enough infrastructure to support the people who have been here forever, but also the new faces who have decided to call Manteo home. And I want to make sure that we continue to include people who want to come to visit our beautiful town and have the lovely sidewalks to walk down and roads that are safe so that our children can continue to ride their bikes to school like my 8-year-old does. And I want to make sure that we keep Manteo special. We're the jewel of the Outer Banks, in my opinion. So I welcome all of you to please come. Thank you. Talk to me whenever.
Okay, thank you very much. Next to speak will be Ms. Betty Selby.
To the league, first of all, thank you for hosting this. Other things that you. To the league, thank you for sponsoring this. Thank you for the opportunity to have this in Manteo. The league, I will say, I'm a proud member of the League of Women Voters. Yeah. As she said, my name is Betty Selby. I'm running for the town of Manteo commissioner because I have served in the past 4 years. And I can tell you what Manteo has done. It's already been said, but you have seen what we have done. I look forward to continuing the growth of Manteo. I'll continue to, if the residents elect me, to serve the people of Manteo and to listen to the town of Manteo. My involvement, I call myself a tag-along kid. From 14 up, I have tagged along with the two great black women in this community. Virginia Tillett, the late Virginia Tillett, the late Dale Collins, who served this board as Mayor Pro Tem. From 14 up, they told me, they prepared me how to be a public service to the people. I also direct Monday Night Live. I'm 23 years with my colleague, Niecy Morris, with Monday Night Live. I enjoy children. I listen to children, not just adults, but I listen to their opinion in the town of Manteo and in the whole county. And from their opinion, even though they're children, I can make a lot work for them in the town of Manteo. I exposed them to local government. I also serve on the board of directors for Outer Banks Community Foundation, where I have enjoyed the scholarship committee. I always about children and making sure they're educated. My experience also include, I serve as a regional coordinator for Advanced Carolina. I am the territory for the whole Northeast with 15 active counties. I love Manteo. I love being your public service for the last 4 years. I look forward to doing that again this year. I think the contribution this board, not me, but the entire board has made. Okay, Okay, thank you. I got carried away.
Thank you, Ms. Selby. Mr. Owens?
Yeah, my name is Bobby Owens. I was born and raised in Manteo, December the 21st, 1932. And that's right, I'm 90 years old and ready to go again. I was born on the Holcomb Farm. I have a prop, Holcomb Milk Dairy Farm. My dad and two brothers and a friend of mine, I was barely kicking around when I was born at Marsh's Light, if you will. The dairy farm encompassed all of Marsh's Light. It was a dairy farm with grade A milk. My brothers delivered the milk every morning and pasteurized it and cleaned it up. So I have quite a history, and I have no history in dairy farming. I have a lot of history in the cafe business. But it's a very, very beautiful place. I'm so proud of Marsh's Light, Pirates Cove, I don't know what to do. It has brought folks like you in here. I was born and raised here. I was already here. I knew what it was. But it brought affluency. It brought education. It brought different types of people getting together as we've needed a long time in Manteo. We haven't had it. We've been very diverse in Manteo, regardless of what you heard. I've been double-crossed so many times, it's unbelievable. I'd like to say this, I have served many years. I have served 13-year terms, 4-year terms, which amounts to about 50, 60 years in state and federal and county government. I've been involved in all three. I worked for 3 governors. And I worked for Jim Hunt personally. I worked for Easley personally. I worked for Beverly Perdue personally as their liaison for Eastern North Carolina. So I'm not inexperienced in government. I'd like to say this. I probably have more time put together than everybody sitting on this board in government. I have the experience, I had the know-how, I had the knowledge to get it done, and I have personal relationships with most government people in the state of North Carolina. I can get things done.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Mr. Clisson?
I appreciate the League of Women Voters hosting this tonight, and it's great to see so many people come out and get involved. And, you know, we were at an event Sunday night over at COA, and one of the first items that the moderator listed was civic engagement. And a lot of times civic engagement isn't realized until after the point. When a lot of these rules and zoning changes get passed, it's sometimes too late. So I encourage this group of people and your friends to get out in front of these items. I mean, when you're sitting next to a piece of land that you know is going to be developed, you need to be able to stay on top of it and make sure you come up with a way that it's going to be developed in the way that it fits this community. And I think we all are in agreement with that. When I moved here in 91, I've been in the same building since 1991. I started out with the radio station and somehow or another ended up with Poor Richards. But it's been a blessing. I mean, I've seen Hannah grow up from a little girl to a lovely woman. Betty Selby I've known forever, and I have relationships with a lot of you guys. It's a very tight-knit community, and that's what makes it special. And if you just said retail space was limited 10 years ago, and Mike and Beth, you know as well, we never thought that. We thought that'll never happen. Well, there's nothing to rent in Manteo. So I'm not here to say I'm against development, but I think we know during the last few months that development is coming. And I think it needs to be important for this group in the civic engagement to be on top of it and work with these developers and try to have them and get them to develop in a way that we like, that continues the tradition of how Manteo looks, because it's special. I do serve on the Health Care Task Force, which was formed over about a year and a half ago, and I don't know how many people got the letters from the hospital, which was kind of devastating for a lot of people. But we got it done actually a lot faster than I thought it was done, and it's literally right across the street, and it has done a great job. Magnolia Market, Cartwright Park, we're all working on this, the current board, to get things done. We're working on a traffic study to try to get that done. We're on Main Street. That's been a huge effort with, I know, Hannah and Michelle and Sherry. So, there's a lot of things going on in Manteo, but we do need to stay on top of things and just try to stay ahead of them so we can continue to keep Manteo special like it is. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clissold. And now, let's give all of them a hand for very nice opening statements. Okay, now we're going to move on to the question portion of the program, and I will read each question and the name of the person who submitted it, and then I will call on you in what appears to be a random order. So, the first one is from Mr. Dave Stempel, and the question is, what are your top priorities for Manteo if elected or re-elected? Mr. Owens.
My top priority is to continue Manteo's growth, development with smart growth, just as we're doing now. It's probably one of the biggest projects going on in eastern North Carolina with everything we've got going. I will mention two things. COA has already been talked about. I bought a book tonight. This is a book of 50 years of COA. My name is mentioned all in it about the first development of COA. Get the book and read it. It's not just talk. There's this big section on Liz City COA and then a small section on Manteo COA. I'm hearing that people were involved, got it done. Read the book and you'll find out I was deeply involved in the development of COA, and it says so in here. And it's quoted by Dr. Chesson, who was the president for 12 years. Concurrent jurisdiction, I don't know who knows what it means. We have just developed a program to clean up the highway from Pirates Cove to CBS. The town has agreed to take it over and keep it clean permanently and continuously. And if you've noticed, it's a heck of a lot cleaner than what it was. Like I alluded to, Marshall's Light Parks Cove is our biggest developments, and we should be very proud of them. And let's all be together as one, as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Butcher-Wickstrom?
You said three primary things that we're looking for.
What are your top priorities for Manteo?
Okay, very well. So my top priorities, I think we've all mentioned them, and that is to make sure that Manteo stays the way that it is and that it doesn't become a cookie cutter town. So part of that commitment means making sure that we stay connected with Main Street. That is a program that has a lot of resources attached to it, and I want to make sure that we leverage everything we can through Main Street. So whether it's for a facade grant to improve a downtown building or business, or whether it's working a plan that we have in capturing stories of all the folks, our historic folks who've lived here, what the stories were, the grit, the determination, capture all of that. So making sure that we keep Manteo the way that it is. That's an important thing. The second thing is we are plagued by traffic congestion. I hear about it all the time. I've experienced it. I come from a metropolitan area, so in a metropolitan area, a 15-minute wait in traffic isn't a lot. But on an island that's 7 miles long, 15 minutes is, by scale, is a lot, getting on and off. So I do plan to address that. I am already addressing that as a commissioner, but I definitely will continue, and I can talk about that more about that later. The last thing is making sure that we keep our water clean and our natural resources resilient. They are our first line of defense, our natural resources, and we need to make sure that we're paying close attention. There's some great studies out there that are just being done. We need to learn to figure out how we do this. Lots of storms coming. Lots of storms coming.
Thank you. Mr. Clisol?
There's a lot on our horizon, and I think we need to do a lot to keep it within what we like about Manteo. So I'd like to continue to stay on and watch the horizon and see what's coming and mediate with most of these people, the developers, to understand how we would like to see the town grow. Safety's a huge issue. I know my children are 21 and 26, so they've kind of grown up. I've got one living outside of the area in Raleigh, but I know Hannah has small children. And I mean, it is. It's I'm not saying it's unsafe, but you want to have a community that your kids or your grandkids or your nephews or your friends can walk it up and down the street. And most of us know each other's kids, so I mean, we all have an eye out. So that's a big important feature. And Manteo is become a destination. I mean, back in the earlier days, I should say, when it was rainy, we all knew it was going to be busy. I mean, we just all hunkered down, and it was going to be crazy. Traffic was going to be bad. Well, in the last couple of years, it's that way almost every day, and that's a good thing, because I always remember Bobby would always say, it could be the opposite way. We could be one of these small towns in eastern North Carolina that doesn't have anything going on. But I want to keep it special. I really do think that we have gotten to the point that, and I don't want to compare it to other towns, but Duck, I think we've surpassed Duck. And I know one of their councilmen or commissioners actually told me that in a jovial way, that they're getting jealous because Manteo has become such a popular spot. And I do have an Airbnb, and I know people have issues either way on that. But 90% of the people that stay there are turned on to Manteo, and I swear I think a small percent of them would love to live here. So keep on going, Manteo.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. McGovern-Selby? Ms. Selby?
Okay, my top 3 things would be, of course, health care. We have tackled that. I co-chair the health care task force, Todd and Randy. I think that we get in the business community so heavy sometimes that we forget, like Harbortown and Baytree. We forget those folks out there. I don't know, you might say we don't, but I feel you do. So I think health care is important. Of course, with what Todd said, all the thousands of people that got the letters, I'm proud to be part of this board that immediately took action. I'm still concerned with health care. It's mental health. Just had a shoot in my family, and it was mental health. It's mental health issues that we need to address as a town, and we need to partner with Dare County. Also, control development. As much as Manteo have grown, we got development. I think it needs to be controlled development. And the third thing will be our children having access to public parks, having bicycle paths for them. You said, the kids, I'm always children. And making sure they have a safe place to play, safe place to ride their bicycle, bike paths for going to school.
Thank you very much. Mr. Borland.
Yeah, we've got fortunate to have a lot of issues in front of us, and I think if you're out in front of issues, they're opportunities, and if you're behind them, then they're problems. And I think one of the biggest one, the most urgent one before us is obviously housing, and that's something that's got to be dealt with one way or another immediately with what's going on with the state budget. Further than that specific issue, we do have a housing problem, and there's different ways to attack that, whether that's participating in different projects, different layers to it. Todd mentioned Airbnb. One of the things I think about is short-term housing and what that would open up if some of that was long-term housing. But I don't look at it out of the way of getting rid of that short-term housing. How can we, whether there's tax breaks or things that we could do to make it more attractive to not say, hey, Todd, you can't make money, but you can make as much or more by doing long-term housing and adding people to our community long-term. Relationships, that's where we're at with this whole county-state thing. We've got to have better relationships, and I think that alludes a little bit to what I talked about before, which is not just the yes or no, it's the no, but here's what it takes. Here's where we're at, and here's how we can move together forward together, have partnerships rather than adversarial relationships. I think those relationships need to be part of growth. Growth is the one of the biggest things before us too, and we have got to partner with the people who are involved there. We've got to define what Manteo wants to be, and then be in the driver's seat there and partner with some of those people like the county and other large developers like Saga, and find a way to work together and have common ground, because if we don't have a plan, then that's just going to happen to us.
Thank you. Ms. McGowan-Forsland.
Thank you. I echo so much of what has already been said. I think appropriate growth, preserving charm, of course, but fostering, more importantly, I think, fostering the preserve and prosper slogan that is part of our town. One of the things I think that is top of mind for me is sidewalks. I don't know if any of you have pushed a stroller or helped someone in a wheelchair go down our sidewalks in the town of Manteo. You almost cannot walk in a straight line down our sidewalks. The power poles, in many cases, are directly in the middle of our sidewalks, which opens another opportunity. We can talk about the opportunity to put some of those power lines underground, see if that's something that we can work with the Minion. Another thing I think that is really important when we look at our sidewalks and our accessibility within town is how our flood is impacted in the town of Manteo. We have gotten this beautiful new pump out system in downtown. It's great. Our infrastructure is continuously being looked into. There are still portions of the town of Manteo that flood horribly, that have a lot of standing water when it rains even. Portions of Sir Walter Raleigh Street and Budley Street, you can watch the water just go directly into foundations, and part of that is living on an island, but we also can look at our flood studies and how we can mitigate that as town leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis.
All right, I'm like, save the best for last. So when I think about the things that my top priorities would be cleaning up Shallowbag Bay, making sure that infrastructure supports, there's growth already here. The growth is already here, right? So we need to make sure that our infrastructure is tracking with the growth that's already here and the growth that's proposed. So to not be short-term thinkers, but thinking, okay, what's our community going to look like in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years? And then there's also housing. And I'm from Manteo. My family's been here for generations. And My father was military because people are like, well, why isn't your last name? And it's like, well, my mama didn't marry a local. But we lived away a little bit of time in elementary school. And when we came back, we moved in with my grandmother in her trailer because there wasn't housing available. And so there were 6 of us living in a 3-bedroom trailer. My grandmother had her own room, and then my mom, my sister, and I shared a room, and my brother and father shared a room until we were able to build a house on that property. Fast forward, like many years later, I moved back home to help take care of my mother before she died, and I had employment when I came back, but I didn't have housing, right? And so I ended up moving in with my parents. And so, like, there's a housing problem here. And we have to be realistic about the problem that's here and look for creative solutions, right? People often don't talk about how they grew up. People often don't talk about it, especially if they grew up living part of their childhood in a trailer, right? Because we hear people talk about not in my backyard. People are like, oh, I don't want to live near the poor people. But you often don't know who you're talking to, right? And so we don't want to make judgments. We don't want to create a community where people feel unwelcome, because I don't believe that's who we are.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next question. It's from Deborah Sloat, and the question is, what is your position on the recent controversy around the water supply to the Bowser Town housing project? And Ms. Lewis, I'm going to call on you first.
Of course. All right. Well, my microphone is still on. So when I think about growth, it's got to be smart growth and smart development. When I was in New Rochelle just before I moved home, I was part of a team of people who worked with developers actually to hold their feet to the fire to make sure that community needs were looked after long term, right? To make sure we actually were able to ensure that the developer set up a fund to support the youth in that community. It's got millions of dollars in it, and it'll continue to support the youth in the community for decades, right? Because that was important. We knew that there was a housing crisis, right? We knew that people needed housing, but we also knew that the community needed some things too. And so when I think about smart growth says, what do we need, right? And what can the developer provide for us that's not already here? And how can we work together to meet the needs in our community? Because there are needs that are already here. You know, sometimes we think growth and we're like, oh my gosh, people are gonna move here from other places. But y'all, there are people living here right now who are living here, who are working here, who are traveling into our community, who don't have housing, right? Who don't have a place to stay. And so we've gotta be smart about it. And I think if we're smart about it and making sure that our water supply and the sewer system will meet the needs not just of the developers but also of the people that are here who are property owners, which is the issue, then we could potentially see ourselves moving forward, but we've got to make sure the need is met.
Thank you. Mr. Clisol?
Yes. It wasn't water, it was
Sewer.
sewer.
It was sewer.
So, you know, and that's where it goes back to civic engagement. And so we listened to the citizens of Manteo, and 99.9% of them were not in favor of us letting them hook up to our sewer plant. Our sewer plant is older. It is in need of repair. It's on a 15-year plan to improve, but it's expensive. And we have to look out for the people who are already in town, the lands that's not developed. We don't know what's going to be developed. We don't know if there's going to be another boutique hotel down the street. There's not going to be. So you need to look after the people who are already in town, that we can give them ample supply of sewage. And we didn't turn the county down from building. I mean, it's their land. They can still build. They can build a package plant. They can find ways to do it. But they kind of made it sound like Manteo shut them down. And we might have in their view, but in reality, they still own the land. They can still build the homes that they want. So I just, you know, I think we need to look out for the citizens. And if 99.9 of the citizens said they're okay with giving the development sewage, then I would have voted the other way. But I mean, we are here as a board to do what the constituents want, and I feel that's what we did. And not only with that, but with the CVS project and other projects. And it's important, you know, there's power in numbers. So if not many people come out or no people come out to voice their views, it's kind of hard for us to judge what to do. So
Thank you. Ms. Butcher-Wickstrom?
Yes, to me, it's a larger question than whether, you know, what's my position on that one particular piece. It's this question about the county needing to, can you hear me?
Yeah, get a little closer to the mic there.
It's a question about the county needing to build 2,500 units of housing, and this 46 unit that they had proposed seems like a drop in the bucket to a huge problem. And so my suggestion to them was that they look at land where you could build a planned unit development, something people would be proud of. And that is doable, but it takes a bigger vision than I feel what I've been seeing coming out of the county's sort of hodgepodge, a few houses here, a few houses there. So it's a little bit larger of a question to me, but it also just the question about that piece of land, which is very low-lying, obviously has some environmental impacts to it. The amount of traffic, there was never any kind of a traffic question done or a study done about what kind of impact there would be on that small spur of road called Bowsertown, with all the car trips that would be generated. So that was an issue that was not addressed. It was just this question of, will you let us connect with the wastewater treatment plant? We also have a moratorium on connecting to the wastewater treatment plant. We instituted that, I think, back in May. So we hadn't done our due diligence on figuring out how much more of that wastewater treatment plant capacity we would need for the land that has yet to be developed in Manteo. And so it was, like I said, it's a larger question, but I guess that's my position. It's multifaceted.
Thank you. Ms. McGowan-Forsland. I'm going to get it right one time.
Like Sherry said, I think it's a much larger question than that. The town of Manteo has done a fantastic job, in my opinion, on forward thinking for affordable housing. We're one of the few towns that have instituted it as part of our land use planning goal, is to have affordable housing for any new development that comes into the town of Manteo. That being said, I learned this at the commissioners meeting on Monday. There are apartments right behind front porch that have brown water. So we're already being affected by the lack of infrastructure or the strain on our infrastructure. We're also one of the few towns that has a wastewater treatment center. It needs to be upgraded, as Todd says. I think the main point is that we don't allow the county to tap in without charging them. I think we can use their funds that they have earmarked potentially to help upgrade that wastewater treatment center. If you want to use it, you have to contribute to it. We all pay our bills every month to be able to have a sewer system. It's fantastic. We don't have septic. But we have to continuously upgrade that and make sure that people who are benefiting from it already have the capacity and have safe drinking water. Another thing with our water system is it is very chlorinated, which again shows some of the stress that we have on our water treatment here in the town of Manteo. We need to fix what we have so that we can continue to share our resources with the greater world.
Thank you. Ms. Govan-Selby?
I feel that we have had several meetings about this issue with the county. We have several meetings for public comments. The residents of Manteo have spoken, and I agree with them. right now, we cannot handle another big project with our wastewater. We can, but it's old. It's old. It need to be fixed. So, Manteo residents have spoken. We have had several meetings, and that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Borland?
Yeah, relationships and housing again. Like a couple other people have said, it was pretty clear what the people of Manteo wanted here, and that's the job of this board. To protect the opinions and voices of everyone in Manteo. And we do have a housing problem, but Manteo should never be bullied into abandoning its morals and standards, and that's kind of what we have here. We need to fix relationships, but not be pushed around and be strong in our positions. One of the things, going back to when I was commissioner before, was, we didn't necessarily say no. In that case, we did say no, but, something that would fit and go through our process and meet, what would fit in Manteo would be just fine. But that involves leaving money on the table and pushing our density, which is already the densest of Dare County, even further. Again, abandoning, Manteo's character. I think infrastructure, everybody kind of talked about. Ironically, what this was gone around behind everybody's back and snuck into the budget, didn't budget for anything specifically to help our infrastructure. That could have been an opportunity to provide an olive branch and get somewhere. So anyway, I think the people have spoken pretty strongly on here, and I think Manteo we do need to address housing. We need to, again, fix these fractured relationships, but not on the backs of our broken backs of our morals. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Owens?
Made it a point that I don't have a vote, so I don't have much of a say. I can talk all I want to, but it does no good. I'm in for a 2-year term. Commissioners are in for a 4-year term. People can vote for them, and they can talk all they want to for 4 years, and I can't vote one iota. It's not very fair. So I have tried to stay out of this. I've let people know I've stayed out of Peninsula. I stayed out of the other groups that you got to talk about things that really are important to the town, which I have no say-so. And it would be unfair for me to get involved and use my expertise, which I do have and I can use if I wanted it. Not here, but in Raleigh. But I'd rather leave it like it is and stay neutral, which I tell people I'm neutral in these projects, and we'll stay there.
Thank you. So we're on to our next question, which comes from Mr. Robert Jacobs. What are your positions regarding the recent North Carolina legislation stripping Dare towns of the right to use their various regulations as to building when affordable housing is the subject? Ms. McGowan-Forsland.
This is a topic that I feel like we're going to be talking about a lot, and we have been. And I attended the commissioners' meeting on Monday where this was a main topic of conversation. Of course, I'm against this. I think anyone who would be wanting to sit on a board like this would be against this. We have thoughtful and respectful legislation in our town to think about the economic impact, but also the environmental impact, setbacks, height restrictions. They're all important. They're all there for a reason, and leapfrogging them to achieve a goal that is potentially short-sighted, I don't think is the way to go. I sit on the Preservation Architecture Review Committee, and I'm also the chair of Manteo Preservation Trust. It's important to have building within our town that represents our town reflects what we'd like our town to look like, that legislation would also strip our ability to regulate that. I'm against it. And I hope that we can come to some type of agreement, not only with the Board of Commissioners, but also with whoever in the state put this in. And I think we're all hoping to find out soon who is behind that.
Thank you. Mr. Owens? Thank you, Mr.
Do what? What do you want to hear? Well, my opinion is that I think that, as the old saying goes, there's arguments on both sides. I can see both sides of the issue, and that's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Mr.
You're
Clissold?
welcome.
The first thing that comes to mind is a couple of, well, I'm not going to say it, but they're not very nice words. I think it's politics lowest, and I think it's basically get to where you want at no cost. And I think it's just interesting how our county commissioners seem to know nothing about it. Their lobbyist seems to know nothing about it. The only name that has come up is a certain individual that I think we've all heard. I just think it's taking politics to a dirty part, and especially when they're coming down on the local municipalities. It's, to me, it troubles me. It really is just a crappy way to get what you want. And the bottom line is the dollar. You got $35 million, and you got $12 million, and you got $9 million. That's a lot of money. That could do a lot of things. And I think these communities could figure out a way, and I think the county has come up with an idea to form a task force to come up with a way. That's the way to do it, not slide something in at the last minute at the Senate level, and we get leaked the information on a Friday morning right before it happens. So, it's disappointing, and I don't think anybody on this board right here would be for it, and I hope it comes out in the publications, our local publications, on who ended up finally putting it in at the Senate level.
Thank you. Ms. Butcher-Wickstrom?
Yes, my position on that is that it offends our local government. It offends our local government. Our local government, which is the closest to the people, as I've mentioned. What that paragraph and a half on page 509 of 611 pages snuck in clearly, what it basically did was it took away our voices. So no public hearing for a development? Seriously. No zoning code requirements from our towns? No process to go through the planning and zoning board or come before a quasi-judicial hearing that is your Board of Commissioners? Unacceptable. In fact, sounds to me like unconstitutional. So, I quite frankly, I've been involved in government for a long time, and I quite frankly have never seen anything like it before. And I think we need to do what we can do. This is my personal opinion, to call it out, and maybe call it out in a court of law, because I do not think this is the right way to govern. It's not constitutional, in my opinion. So effectively, it took away all of our voices. And I don't know if you know, yesterday was Monday. I know you know that. But Monday, an application could have been made right here at Town Hall for a building that could be 10 stories tall. We could have been the recipient of that because it is now law.
Thank you, Ms.
Okay,
Wickstrom.
done.
Ms. Lewis?
This is an important question, and I want to be clear and say stripping the people of our rights is never okay. And that's what happened when this provision for Dare County was slipped into the budget. And as much as I think we've all agreed that there's a housing crisis, this isn't the right way to go about it. Because as people living in this community, you have the right to speak out, right? You have the right to show up at a public forum and public hearing to talk about how you feel about development that's happening in our community. And it shouldn't go without saying that the environmental movement started here in North Carolina. And often when we look at polluters, developers sometimes are some of the worst polluters. And the idea that they wouldn't have to adhere to zoning regulations and laws that are already in place to protect us, the people living here, is shameful. And some of us were at the Unite NC event on, was it Sunday night? On Sunday night. And what I said to the camera, they were recording messages to send to our legislators, is I said, shame on you. You know, shame on you for trying to get one over on the people. And what I want to say is, you know, sometimes people say, oh, well, my voice doesn't matter. It absolutely does. And all of us working together can be the change that we hope to see in the community. We can fight this, but it is going to take all of us working together. You know, we can get into the weeds on why it was done, but our rights as community members should never be stripped. So.
Thank you. Mr. Borland?
Yes, I'm going to pick up where I left off on this one. You know, anything under the guise of affordable housing, they just strip us of everything, you know, and in all of Dare County, not just in Manteo. In Manteo, there's a specific project that it involves is maybe the difference. But, you know, we've heard nothing but that I don't know, you know. I don't know how it got in there. I don't know where it come from. I don't know who put it in there. And that comes without a stance on it, you know. The only acceptable I don't know is that's terrible and I'm against it. Because frankly, to me, I don't know from our leaders is not acceptable. You know, either you do know and you're lying, or you don't know and you should be finding out. And we need to hold them accountable. You know, we can hold them accountable through votes, or we can hold them accountable through legislative action, but, you know, maybe a little bit of both.
Thank you. Ms. Selby?
Well, short and simple. They did an act that was sneaky. Jason, you have said 3 times about partnership. How can you partner with the organization or local government that did something this sneaky? How can you partner with them when we don't have transparency with the county? We don't have that. 2 agencies in the small island that we're on, 2 local governments that can't work together. It's no clear transparency. And being sneaky by saying you don't know is very unprofessional. I believe in taking the fight to the ballot box. They gotta run. So I just think it's sneaky.
Thank you. Okay. Next question comes from Deborah Sloat. What is your position on designating an historic district in Manteo and on completing the process of having our courthouse designated as an historic structure? Mr. Borland.
Yeah, I think you've got two different things there. The one, I think the historic district is a great idea, and it's a great idea. It's one of the tools that we can use to protect our town. And so I'm all for that side of things. The courthouse is a tough one, and my wife was the chair of what Hannah is now in Manteo Preservation Trust, and she reached out to the state to see what it would take to get on the historic register, and they pretty much laughed her off the phone because it's come so far away from what it was internally and what it needs to be in order to be on the historic register. So, you know, if that was something that was attainable, then I think that would be great. It's a historic building. It's the cornerstone of downtown, and you know, I'd love to see it if it's not too far gone. But I do want to be, you know, realistic about what it would take and how much money of stripping everything out and of what it is now. So I'd have to see some numbers to support that, you know, tax dollars going into it. But I think on the other side, the historic district would be nothing but a positive thing to help protect Manteo's downtown.
Thank you. Ms. Selby.
Well, as a local, being born and raised here, reared here, seeing what the courthouse was and the events that happened at the courthouse and seeing what it is now, I think it's of the most highest historical value. I remember as a young girl, yes, I think it should be a historical preservation site. As a young girl, y'all, I remember going to the windows on the back of the courthouse and throwing rocks. We would just throw rocks at the windows. We'd never get caught. We were just too fast. But but it brings back so many memories for me and my family, my brothers and sisters. So I think that would be wonderful.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis.
Yeah, I definitely think the courthouse is something that should be preserved. But, you know, when I think about, I did work in national parks and with historic preservation teams, and, you know, there's a lot that goes into making something a historic district. And so just being realistic about what that would mean for our community, for future building, what that even might mean for you for the remodel of your home if it's within the historic district and it's designated a historic place. So I think all those things have to be taken into consideration, but I do support preserving the courthouse if that's a possibility, but also thinking about where's the money going to come from to do that. But if somebody in here can write a check for that, right? Somebody can do that. So, but yeah, because I do, you know, being, you know, from here, my family being here for generations, and I think it really is important, but I also want us to not forget about the other side of the highway, because often when we have these conversations about the town of Manteo, we forget that there's another part of the town of Manteo. And so as we're thinking through historic districts and what that means and what that looks like, to not neglect the other side of the highway, which historically has happened. And so for us to be forward-thinking and as fully inclusive as we can so that we are meeting the needs of all the citizens of our community.
Thank you. Mr. Owens.
You need to know what your goals are. You need to know where you're going. You need to know what you're doing. When I first run for office in 13, I knew what I wanted done. I've got most of it done, and I like 5 projects that I'm working on concurrently now, use that big word again, that I would like to see done, and then I will be through. I will go ahead and name them. So one of them is pretty big. I'm working closely with the state of North Carolina on Festival Park. I think Manteo should own Festival Park. I really, really do. We could do something with it. Myriad of things we could do. I'm interested in placing a bronze statue life size of Chief Manteo in downtown Manteo at the obelisk in the parking lot. We're pretty close to that. If y'all want to come out to see the architect's rendering, the middle of October, he will be here. He's got quite a reputation in Williamsburg and Jamestown. We're just at the planning stage. I have not talked to the commissioners. And I should have probably, but I haven't because we're not that far ahead. When we talk to the commissioner, we need to talk money. There's a small road back of the Manteo School that needs to be done. It's almost ready to complete, and all we need to do is pave it. And the 3 turtle lights, I want 3 turtle lights downtown Manteo, which will not shine in the sky at all. They'll shine down on the sidewalks, which the lady alluded to. Somebody alluded to sidewalks over there, and it will be able to see. And that would be my goals, and I'd be through.
Thank you. Ms. McGowan-Forsland.
I'll start with the courthouse. Our Dare County Courthouse is the last remaining courthouse that is not recognized in the state of North Carolina as a historic courthouse. As Jason alluded to, there are a few minor things that have to be done. When I talked recently, we do not need to restore it to its precise what it used to be. At this point, we need to sign a piece of paper saying that we as a community support it as a historic structure. That is it. It has to be signed, and we can submit it, and it's done. I think that should be top of all of our goals. We're the last remaining courthouse in North Carolina that's not recognized. For the Historic District, as I mentioned, I am the chair of Manteo Preservation Trust, and I serve on Park Preservation Architecture Review Committee. When people come before us at Preservation Architecture Review Committee, we can submit should or suggestions when they bring their plans before us. We cannot say you shall do this. Having a historic district would give us some ability to at least hold people to the plans that they have, the permits that they want to put forward. I don't think it needs to be as restrictive as saying you can't paint your house a certain color or you can't update your windows or whatever, but having some teeth, I think, is important to be able to ensure that our town continues to look like the town that we all love and helps to preserve our community. It also opens up grants and ability for us to get some support in restoring our buildings. And so having a historic district, I think, is incredibly important.
Thank you. Ms. Butcher-Wickstrom.
Yes, historic preservation is not only my passion, but it's been my career for many years. So I'm a big believer in historic preservation in terms of what it does to enhance a town and create a sense of pride. So a historic district would not be difficult to do. We would first have to create a historic preservation commission. But we already have that structure in place. And we have a architectural and preservation review committee, which serves a lot of the function that that you need when you're creating a historic district. You go through a historic preservation commission to do that, and we can achieve that. That would not be difficult to do at all. Once you're a historic preservation commission, then you can apply to be a certified local government. Once you are that, you get to have access to lots and lots of grants. It's a marvelous thing. Under that, you can look at the courthouse question. Should we say the courthouse? I absolutely think we should. I think it should be on the National Register. And there's a lot of paperwork to do that. But with an HPC and a certified local government, that would be Manteo, it would be completely doable. So I'm a big fan of that. And like I said, we already have the structure in place. We just don't have all the paperwork that we have to submit to the State Historic Preservation Office in order to get that. But yes, we have a map with 120 identified historic sites, also on the west side, all of Manteo. And so that's a marvelous start for our historic district. This has been thought about many, many times.
Thank you. Mr. Clissold?
I think our historic district is really one of the main reasons Manteo is so special. I know MPT has done, they've been around for many years. I know since being here since 91, they've had a lot to do with the home tours, the Christmas tours. So I think I'm all for it. It's a special designation that keeps Manteo special. The courthouse, the people that have lived here for a long time know a lot of the history with the courthouse. You could walk in the front door, go in the second door to the right, and you'd be in Bert Austin's office. You could go in Rodney's office, not you, Rodney, but Sheriff Rodney. So there's a lot of history in that courthouse. The thing is Manteo does not own the courthouse. That is still owned by the county. So that would have to be kind of a mutual agreement, which I don't think the county would oppose it. But I do think it's special. It should be taken care of. It's got some really bad issues with some of the structure right now. I know the deck above the front door, you can't even go out on it anymore because it's so unsafe. So I'm for the historic district, and I'm definitely for moving forward to try to get the courthouse, but I do think that has to be done in hand with the county since they do own it and they lease it out to the Dare County Arts Association.
Thank you. So we're going to do one last question, and it's from Mr. Robert Keeney. The North Carolina Department of Transportation has not addressed numerous highway safety issues within Manteo, i.e., adopting all-way stop intersections, crosswalks, and setting speed limits. How would you encourage North Carolina Department of Transportation to be more responsive to the needs of Manteo residents? Mr. Clissold.
There again, it's power in numbers. We all know who our representative is, and if you don't know, you need to ask us or ask Melissa with the town. He's local, and he is our representative. So, I mean, if there are things that need to be addressed, he needs to be contacted, not just by one person, but by many. There are issues that need to be addressed, but I'll tell you, I think DOT is in disarray. They don't have a lot of money, they say. So a lot of things that we've asked for have not been addressed. But one of the interesting things that I'm guilty of, and I hate to say it, but this main road, 64, we've got crosswalks on that highway. And there are many people, children, mothers with strollers, that walk up and down that highway and that, expect cars to stop. And if, up in Duck, they've got blinking lights. And so your brain triggers you to stop. And, I have gone by and I wave. I said, I'm sorry, but it's something that I'm not used to. But I think DOT does need to address some of our most important problems, that being one of them. I know with Sherry has been trying to tackle, and I think Ruth, who's sitting just a couple rows back, Commissioner Ruth, is working on a traffic study. And we have been given the promise that DOT is going to work with us to try to better some items. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McOwen-Forsland.
I think it's incredibly important to hold NCDOT accountable. I understand there's some confusion with the signs that are posted in the town of Manteo. I know I sit on my front porch almost every day. My kids like to play out in their yard, as they should. I live on Budley Street, which is 20 miles per hour in the town of Manteo. So often, I want to throw a shoe at someone who is speeding down Budley Street going 35 miles per hour. And you can't fault them because they're coming off of the main road, which is 35, and they're coming downtown and they think, oh, this probably is the same. We need to have the flashing lights. We need to have really prominent speed signs that say, hey, your speed is this. Another thing we've done in the past, the DOT made us take it down, but we had four-way stop signs on a lot of streets as you came into Manteo. So you had to slow down, you had to stop, you had to look around. We need a safe community. We have kids here. We have people who walk through our town. And even now, we have a district a social district where people are drinking. We need to be very mindful of having safe streets that protect not only the people who are walking in town, but also the people who are driving. I don't think anyone ever wants to have an accident, but you have to have the acknowledgement of that.
Thank you. Mr. Borland?
Yeah, I think talked about the traffic study that's being done, and I think that's a great first step to have something to go have a specific ask. Also like Todd said, we have our numbers of our community. Like Hannah, I see them flying down Fernando Street, and it scares you. You're just waiting for catastrophe to happen and praying that it doesn't. Like I said before, issues can be opportunities, and I think you've got the safety and beautification that can be done at the same time. You go, okay, we need to fix some of these sidewalks. My wife is one of the people putting the stroller on the street there, and in the meantime, you bring those telephone poles underground, and there's ways to do that. And that's one example of many, and I've got some experience doing that in my life of telecom previously. But I think having a specific ask, and going to the state for things. There's also things that we can do, like those, speeding signs that show, how fast you're going, and other traffic calming devices. And when I was commissioner before, I remember looking at the back of the room, and whether it was Chief Haskett or Lieutenant Eilert there, it was like we were putting the budget together. This is important stuff, So how much money do you need? What do you need? How many of these things do you need? What do they cost? There's things that we can do, and it's important to spend money on to keep Manteo safe, but also we need to push on relationships to try to get something done at the state level as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borland. Ms. Lewis?
Yeah, thank you. So the police department actually, in the last year, purchased a number of speed signs and devices. So when you see them around in your community, that's some of the work that the police department recently did, that we actually spent a lot of time talking about on the Community Police Advisory Board. So the work is slow, right? When I was early in my government career, someone said to me, if you want to stay in government a long time, you need to remember these three things. They said, don't burn any bridges. I was like, okay, I hear that. They said, never work any hours you're not paid for. I was like, okay. And then they said, there's nothing that has to be done today that can't wait until tomorrow. I was like, what? I was like 22. I was like, this probably isn't what you should be teaching the 22-year-old. But sometimes that's what we see happen in government, right? Is that it takes a phone call. Sometimes it takes lots of phone calls. Sometimes it takes showing up in mass. Like, I'm not opposed to showing up. So if a group of y'all want to make a road trip, we can do that. But there does need to be a specific ask, right? Because we need to know what we're asking for. We need to know what we need. We need to make sure those traffic studies are done and that we follow through on what those recommendations are. So.
Thank you. Ms. Butcher-Wickstrom.
Yes, about a year ago, we thought we had made a simple ask. So we asked the Department of Transportation if we could get all of our speed limits in town to be 20, because 20 miles an hour. Because, there are so many roads and they're different. I think the speed limit, honestly, that is listed to go on, would that be Ananias, to go over to Festival Park is like 45 miles an hour. And it's coming off a street that's supposed to be 25 miles an hour. So crazy, posted miles per hour. So 1 year ago, we said, please, Department of Transportation, please make all of our streets 20 miles an hour. So 1 year later, they released some to us, so we were able to actually post. But they had never really had a request for only 20 miles an hour in a town. It kind of blew them away. It was something new. The lowest they had was 25 miles an hour. So anyway, so they released some and said, yes, this number of streets in Manteo, 20 miles an hour. And I'll get back to you about the other ones. So almost a year later, it took a strongly worded letter just recently to get the rest of them released. So there is a problem there in communication. I also think that there have been changes. I think even our representative is, Alan Moran, but I think that he's in transition. I have heard that. But that doesn't mean that we can't stick to it and keep our voice in front of the Department of Transportation, because we need a transportation plan. We really, really do. So anyway, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Owens?
Yes, I would like to give you a very glowing report on a transportation study, but I'm afraid I'd be at a loss of words. We could go to Raleigh, we could eat a good meal, have good conversation among us, and that's where it would end. That's where it's been ending for the last few years, and I see no future. I got to tell you the truth. I wished I did, but I don't have a glowing report with DOT and Manteo. Don't know why. Think I know. As you know, they've taken all the restrictions away from the governor. They actually have. I'm talking about they being the legislature who is in total control. That's the reason Alan thinking about it stepping down. And we just will talk reality. I don't have the answer. There's got to be one, but I don't know what it is. There is a problem. My son talks about the transportation problem all the time. He has been on a past transportation board, as a matter of fact, where they were very strong. And I wish I could leave you with something, and I don't have anything. I wish I could do it.
Thank you. Ms. Govan-Selby?
We have talked about transportation here for a long time, and as has been said, nothing has happened. I do know that Melissa recently have talked with the engineer, as well as, I'm not sure if she talked to Alan or not. It is a problem, as I said at the beginning. I think my first question was, I'm concerned about safe rides to school, going to school, getting the kids done, getting kids there in a safe way. And I personally think a bike path would be the remedy. They need a bike path and not a sidewalk. So I do think I agree with Commissioner Clissaw. Numbers speak. And we're just going to have to get numbers, get letters written, and things like that. I mean, they can ignore us, but we can allow them to ignore us, but we need action. They can't ignore us all the time. So that's my take. Get in their face, come in numbers.
Thank you. So, thank you to all of you for answering all these questions. Very interesting conversation. And lastly, we're going to have closing remarks. And as I mentioned, this will be in the opposite order from the opening remarks. So first, Mr. Clissaw.
All right, I just want to thank you guys again for coming out and listening. It shows that Manteo has a lot of support, and that's what we're going to need in the next few years. When I moved here in '91, I moved here for a reason. And it wasn't for Target, it wasn't for Marshalls, it wasn't for Starbucks, it wasn't for Wawa. It was because there was solitude here. You'd work hard for 3 months, and the rest of the year you could lay down on the beach road and take a nap without getting run over. That's all changed, and I really didn't think I would. I mean, I love Manteo. It's dear to my heart. I feel like I'm from here, but I'm serving to be a steward, to keep this town special, and it's going to grow. We all know it's going to grow. But as long as we stay on top of it as a community, and go for the same goals and fight the same fights, we can do it in harmony with development. But there has to be a mediation between both, where both sides are happy. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I can tell you the board that is serving now has done a good job in denying some situations that we felt like was going to change the scope of the town. And we'll just have to continue to work hard, and you guys show up in numbers and show your opinions and your strengths and call your people that you know. And I think we can get it done. I really do. So thank you all for coming out. And thanks for the League of Women Voters for inviting us out to give our views.
Thank you. Mr. Owens?
You know, the only thing I have to say, it's a secret worth keeping, but it's also a secret worth talking about. Most of the small towns, I've said this over and over and over, in eastern North Carolina are dying or dead, except Manteo. Manteo is alive and well, and we shouldn't stop it. Maybe we should think about slowing it up a little bit, but you will not stop totally growth and development. Folks, I assure you, you will not do it. But you can handle it the way it should be handled. That's what we should do. And so proud of everybody coming out tonight and making a wonderful event.
Thank you. Ms. Selby?
In closing, I would like to say thanks everybody for coming out. Thanks for 4 years of your opinion, giving me a call, sitting down, talking with me about your concerns. I appreciate that. I look for the opportunity to do that another 4 years. In 4 years, will not say I. This board, along with your input, has caused Manteo to rise above. Our economics has risen, our business community have grown, and as they said, somebody said, we are a destination park. A destination. But with that said, we all contribute. I'm not going to say the board. I want the pleasure of being part of this journey to continue this journey. But it wasn't just the board. It was your input, your table meeting with us individually, and then collaborative by being on committees that you served on. I am proud to be part of Manteo. I grew up with Manteo, and I want that journey to continue to be a public servant. One of my specialties, in addition to children, is advocate for people. I've done that across northeastern North Carolina, and I've done that here in my town of Manteo. And I appreciate you all, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you. Ms. McGowan-Froslin?
Thank you for a lively discussion, wonderful questions. I welcome you all to call me, text me, email me, or better yet, come sit on my front porch with me. Like I said, I'm out there almost every day. Come and talk to me about what you feel is important to you, what you feel is important to our town. Talk to me about what you think is something special that I could help with. I'm here to help. As a mom, I also welcome you to tell me if my kids are ever toeing the line. As I said, it takes a village, and I'm thankful every day for this village that I've had the great privilege to grow up in. I hope to help keep our village strong. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis?
So thank you all for lasting. Y'all stayed the course. So thank you for that. And if no one has told you lately, I want to remind you that your voice is sacred and it matters. And I think we all know somebody who wasn't here tonight, who couldn't get here. So let them know what happened here tonight. Let them know about the things that we talked about, and remind them to vote, because your vote matters. I want you to vote for me. So I want to just thank you in advance for that. And, you know, this week with my students in my spiritual formation class, I teach hybrid students at Duke, and we talked about radical hospitality. And when I think about radical hospitality, that's what I so often have found here in Manteo. You know, one of my nephews, when he was a little boy and he visited, and he was in what back then was SNR, but it's, yeah, thank you. I still want to call it SNR, but he ran out of money when he was trying to buy ice cream. And there was a police officer from the town of Manteo behind him in line, and the police officer paid for his ice cream. And he came back because he was living in Buffalo where people don't have the best relationship with police. And he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the cop bought my ice cream. And I was like, that's what they do here. But it's not just the police, it's the people. And so, you know, as we continue looking for ways to work together, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being a part of this process and just exhibiting radical hospitality to the people who show up and who are here. And yeah, I think that's all I got to say. And thank you to those who have shared this dais with this evening for just a really good discussion. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Butcher-Winstrom?
Yes, so in closing, first of all, thank you all for this opportunity. A stellar group you are, League of Women Voters. So in closing, it's my view that now is a very important time, and I would say it's actually a crucial time for Manteo. We have wonderful opportunities ahead of us to be our very best. So as mayor, I am committed to maintaining our small town character, our sense of community, and as much of our history as possible. Secondly, I will continue to work on our traffic concerns, I promise, by partnering with our rural planning organization and the Department of Transportation to secure funding for a traffic study and implementation plan. Thirdly, I am committed to learning more about how we can protect and preserve our natural resources and keep our water clean. Lastly, I feel that I need to mention that while Manteo has a number of wonderful opportunities that I've mentioned and will be pursuing, we also have pressures for us to change the way we do things. The very things that have worked for us and have made us this charming, safe, natural place to live. There are pressures to make our buildings taller, to make our beautiful night skies too bright, add density to a town that is only 2 square miles in large. Some of these pressures are actually actions that are forced on us by other levels of government. So it is a crucial time, and a time I believe we need to strengthen our resolve in these goals that we, Manteo residents, have forged together. It is my commitment as mayor to be vigilant and proactive and to stand for what we believe is best for our community. And that is my promise as your future mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Borland?
Well, first I want to quickly, with Hannah's new information on the courthouse thing, I do want to say I think we should sign that thing saying we want the courthouse before the state changes their mind again. But I just want to quickly end on a note of going back to this group and the board, and some of us were at that Unite NC meeting a few nights ago, and again I talked first up there, and I might have been the only person in the whole dang room that actually signed up to speak, but so I started talking, and then there was a lot of great conversation in there afterwards. Sherry came in and added on to what I said, and Todd and Michelle, and it was really great. We were all talking about the same thing, about the love for Manteo and how to protect it and how to move forward, and it was really good and really powerful. I came home and my wife asked how it went, and I told her, I said, I threw the clay on the table and kind of started it, and then the rest of the guys just finished crafting it into, what was a nice piece of art by the end of it. So, I can't guarantee I'm always going to be the most articulate one up here. I never claim to have all the ideas. I try to be a good conduit for the ideas of the community. But I can't always guarantee my transparency and integrity and, you know, making sure that the clay is on the table in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we should give our candidates here a round of applause. Thank you. We want to thank the town of Manteo for the use of this wonderful meeting room and for videotaping the forum. We will post the video on our website and on our YouTube page. The Dare County Current TV channel will broadcast the forum. Check their website for dates and times. And I'm now going to turn the meeting back to Marion, who is there.
Okay, I want to talk about vote411.org. There's some bumper stickers over there and some other materials about it. This year, we've asked all the candidates to participate in the League's online voter guide called 411.org. This is a one-stop shop website that voters may access on their phone or on their PC. It's very easy. I can do it. You can do it. Key in your address and you can view your ballot, your candidate information, their philosophies, social media links, and their responses to questions in their own words that we posed. Please check it out. 3 out of the 8 candidates this evening have already responded to their 411 invitations. The rest are in progress. This year, Vote 411 live date is scheduled for the start of early voting on October 19th. So you can see the information about these candidates for Manteo at that time. There's other elections in North Carolina that have different election days, municipal and city elections, and they're using up the platform until then. There's more forums like this. Future scheduled forums are listed, if you want to go to some more, on this rack card that we have. There's some on the table over there. And on the flip side of the rack card are the newer regulations pertaining to voter ID. Very important. And of course, there's dates when registration closes and some other things, and of course, election day. Okay, let's talk about voter ID just a little bit. Photo ID. You can use a North Carolina driver's license, of course. You can use a state ID from the North Carolina DMV office, often called a non-operator ID. You can use a driver's license or a non-driver ID from another state, District of Columbia, or U.S. territory if you have already registered here in the last 90 days. I know that's confusing, but it's on this card. You can use a passport or a passport card, or you can use a voter photo ID card that is being, right now, this week and until the end of early voting, that is being created at the Board of Elections office. So they have the equipment to make a photo ID for you. They're doing this right now. Okay. And this is something brand new, and they'll be doing this until the end of early voting. So that's fairly easy for us here because we live so close to the Board of Elections office. You can use a college or university student ID approved by the Board of Elections. You can use a state or local government or charter school employee ID if it's approved by the State Board of Elections. If you do not have a valid photo ID, you can obtain one from the County Board of Elections office, as I said, through the end of the early voting period. That's up till November 4th. That's a Saturday. If you have any questions regarding this, please contact the Dare County Board of Elections. And I have their number. You can ask me later. I'm going to give it to you now. It's 252-475-5630, or 5631. And you can ask me after this is over if you need to write that down. If you do not have a valid photo ID card on Election Day, you may vote and have your vote counted by signing an affidavit of reasonable impediment as to why you have not presented your photo ID. And if you have any questions about this situation of not having one and not knowing where to go or not being able to go, perhaps, to the office, call that Board of Elections office, 475-5630. Last day to register to vote is Friday, October 13th at 5 o'clock. Registration forms are available there. So you people are all registered, but you might know somebody that isn't, and you can take one along. If you miss that date, you may still register to vote at one-stop early voting sites. That's in Kill Devil Hills at the Town Hall, and that's during the early voting period, and over here at our County Administration Building where we vote. Early voting begins on October 19th until Saturday the 4th of November. The hours for that early voting for in Manteo, it's from 8:30 in the morning until 5 every day, every work day, and the Saturday. Over in Kill Devil Hills, they start at 10 a.m., so from 10 to 4. They have shorter hours over there. And you and I can go over to Kill Devil Hills and vote during early voting, only during early voting. Okay, plus Saturdays for both locations. Saturday, November 4th, that's right before the November 7th election day, and the hours are 8 to 3. That's all. I know you just got every bit of that, but it's take one of these rack cards, okay? This will help you, and the information about 411 to remind you, and try it out. Okay. Some people are voting absentee ballots. You may know some folks that need to apply for one. You can do it from now, tomorrow morning, until October 31st, Halloween, 5 o'clock. Absentee ballots must be returned to the Board of Elections by November 7th, Election Day. No grace period. They've got to be there at 5 o'clock. We have forms for applying for an absentee ballot back on the table, and you can also find one online. Board of Elections website. And of course, Election Day is November 7th at your precinct, which of course is Manteo. We encourage you to join us as we strive to defend democracy. League of Women Voters membership applications are on the information table as well. Thank you very, very much. Our Voter Services Committee arranges all of these. There's six of these forums. And we have the chair and co-chair of that with us tonight, Lorelei DiBernardo and Ms. Marcy Reese, okay? They did the work to put these together. Thank you so much.